Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks provides unique mentoring opportunities to enhance your modeling skills by connecting with talented modelers and manufacturers from around the globe who generously share their knowledge and artistic expertise. Build your confidence, refine modeling techniques, and share your projects with a supportive community of fellow modelers, all while enjoying the world's most rewarding hobby. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and YouTube for our free live program. Missed a program? No problem. Individual show segments are uploaded to YouTube for convenient on-demand viewing. Be sure to connect with the New Tracks community by joining the New Tracks Facebook page, where you can interact with other modelers and see what they are modeling. Visit our website at www.newtracksmodeling.com, where you'll find information about upcoming events and the latest issue of our monthly newsletter, Observations. And now, here is the host of New Tracks Modeling, Tom Farrell.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to New Tracks Modeling, the live Zoom and YouTube show that airs every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jim Kello founded New Tracks Modeling to build a supportive and educational community where mentors help modelers build. Our media platforms include the live Zoom and YouTube show you're watching now, our Facebook page, our dedicated website, and the Observations newsletter, which has over 8,000 subscribers. Additionally, we have our New Tracks Modeling Scholarship Program, which you will hear about a little later in the program. Everything we do is completely free to our participants. Our entire team operates on a volunteer basis, dedicated to supporting the model railroading community. Before we begin tonight's program, let's take a moment to hear from our show's sponsor, Brennan's Model Railroading.
Tonight's New Tracks Modeling Meetup is sponsored by Brennan's Model Railroading. For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products focused on the O-scale market. Their flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. The prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, Brennan's has developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's also has craftsman kits that anyone can build. The complete photographically illustrated instructions assume you've never done this before, and explain in step-by-step detail how to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits are amazing additions to any layout. These kits take Frank Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials with Dennis Brennan's additional details and amazing instructions. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit.
Next, I'd like to review our program for this evening. And we have a special guest this evening, Charles Rowe. Charles Rowe is the owner of USA Trains and also the largest distributor in the U.S. of Lionel products. At one point, he had the largest single order, over $1 million placed with Lionel. He's also the largest manufacturer of G-scale American prototypes in the world. So we're very pleased to have him on the show this evening. After Charles, we have another G-scale fellow, Steve Bittenger. He's been on the show past 2 weeks. This evening, he'll be showcasing his G-scale locomotives and rolling stock. And then we have two S-scale presentations this evening. Jamie Bothwell will continue his converting his heavyweight Pullman cars, and Joel Weber on the S-scale high rail, showcasing some locomotives, power supplies, and differentiating the old with the new in that regard. And we have a return of Steve Sherill with what cleaning devices and car wheel cleaning devices. And then the final presentation, if there's time, I will feature a Bar Mills O-scale resin water tower for my Everwine coal facility portion of my Rustic, Buff, and Old Gothic. So before we have Charles on, I'd like to take a moment to highlight our New Tracks Modeling Scholarship Program.
Are you a model railroader going to college in academic year 2025-26? If you are pursuing a STEAM degree, apply for the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship. For the 2025-26 academic year, 3 $2,000 scholarships will be available. You can apply online at the QR code shown or on the New Tracks Modeling website. Model railroaders can support the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship, the only national scholarships for model railroaders from a nonprofit organization. Donate online on Zephy. All donations are tax deductible.
Now I'd like to begin our show and our first guest, Charles Rowe. And Charles, welcome to New Tracks Modeling. And unmute yourself if you would. There you go.
Thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, I wanted to take a moment and just thank you for joining the show. And I was delighted to see your website, and we've had conversations over the past couple of days, figuring out you just have so many products and so many offerings. It's difficult to differentiate or nail down a few of them. But why don't you tell us a little about how you got into the hobby? And your father, of course, was tell us a little about what you're doing these days.
Yeah, my dad started the business in 1972. He was a Lionel collector. And then he decided to make his hobby his business, which grew into two businesses, which are quite substantial. So in 1972, we opened our first Lionel account. And again, we had the first $1 million order with Lionel that wasn't a non-chain order, it was a hobbyist order. And then sometime around 1986, Lionel decided to go to Mexico to manufacture trains. So we weren't really getting any product for a period of time. So at the same time, LGB came into the market and became a substantial player in the G-scale market. But they only had a few American prototypes. And so we felt there was a need to make American-style G-scale trains. So we started with a boxcar, and we thought it was just going to be a little hobby, but now it's a big business. So that's basically how we started. It was a niche business. And so we basically have two businesses now. We have the retail side of the with the Lionel and HO and N-Gauge and all the gauges and all the manufacturers. And then we also manufacture to supply dealers with stuff that they need to sell to fill the niche of the G-scale market.
As we'll see, you mentioned that there's a very large layout at your retail center. And it's my understanding that's both G-scale and O-scale. Is that right?
Yes, we run three G-scale trains and 3 O-gauge trains simultaneously. It's a 16 by 32 layout. And it's really to bring kids into the hobby and to bring people into the store. We're really noted for a destination. People come from all over the world to come here to see our store and the products that we sell. They're quite amazed when they come.
You're located approximately 10, 15 minutes from Logan Airport in Boston, north. Is that correct?
Yes. A lot of people come into Boston and they'll stop here on their way here or their way back to the airport. And it's always nice to see people come in from out of town and out of the country even. Just
from curiosity, that layout, did you help build it, or is that something that you got your hands on?
I only put one thing on the layout, was a seagull. That's the only thing I put on the layout. My guys worked on it for about 9 months or so, and a lot of them hobbyists themselves. And we have a G-scale curved bridge. It's probably about 7 or 8 feet long. That was all handmade by one of our talented employees. It's all hand laid track, and he really did a fantastic job in the layout.
We will feature photographs from the layout in the retail store. We'll also feature some photos of a youth program that Charles is heavily supporting. And in a few minutes, when we're done with the interview, we'll do some new product releases. But tell us a little about what you think the state of the hobby is. Do you think, I mean, you with your retail store, you participate in N, HO, I would imagine potentially S scale, O scale, and G scale. I mean, we've come to know that, of course, HO is the most popular. That's basically what you're seeing still? And is the hobby strong?
HO has always been the most popular gauge. Our store we do HO and N gauge, but we're more noted for the O gauge and the G scale. We do have a large HO clientele that comes in to see stuff and buy stuff or whatever. I see the hobby is, of course, getting older. Everybody knows that. A lot of us are getting older. We need to bring more youth into the hobby, and I feel how we do that is we have you need stores with layout, and you need people to support stores. Like the hobbyists have to actually support the hobby shops, local hobby shops, as well as the mail order business, as well as buying mail order. But you need to go in the local hobby shop so they stay around, so people can see the trains. It's a visual thing. You have to see it. To sell on Amazon or something like that, you only selling Christmas ornaments or whatever, something to go around the tree, back in the box. See you next year. We want the people to come in, feel comfortable. Oh, I'm going to put this on a board. My kid really enjoys it. So you start with a little layout and you go from there.
We had a manufacturer on about a month ago, a major manufacturer, and he went to that Springfield show in Massachusetts. I used to go to it myself. And he said that probably 60% of the people were between under 35. I don't know if that's, he thought perhaps the hobby was getting strong again. I don't know if that's what you're finding.
Yeah, we have a lot of younger people coming in. A lot of mothers come in, single mothers with the kids. And we always tell them, hey, try it. We'll help you through it. Don't get discouraged. There's no stupid questions. You come in, we'll support you as much as we can to make your child feel comfortable with the trains, and you can help them with the layout. So that's a big thing too. You need the support of the local stores.
We're going to showcase a couple of your new product offerings, but what's it like to work with, if you don't mind, what's it like to work with China and introduce a new product? Do you do the CAD drawings here in the US, send them over there? Or just out of curiosity, how does that work?
Well, we manufacture also in the US. So
good.
We have our own tooling here, what we call the American series. That's how we started, US based only. And then when we started doing locomotives, we moved to China because of the complexity and the time involved. So we basically give them a concept of what we want, and they provide us with drawings. And then we review the drawings and we amend them like multiple times, 5 or 10 or 15 times before we get what we want, the design we want. And then they actually do the tooling and production. We get a finished product.
One of the things that really pleasantly surprised me when I was investigating your new product releases is the large number of road names. I mean, that is terrific that you do that. I mean,
we do all the research for that here and all the artwork in-house. We provide them with all the deco, what we want, and then they just execute what we gave them.
Some of our viewers, and we've gotten feedback that I think I shared with you how astounded I am with the technology in a Lionel locomotive these days. I mean, it's like a Mars shot. It has so much going on.
Yeah.
It talks to you. It has steam, lights.
With as real as it gets, I guess, at this point. The only thing we don't do is steam them up and all that. But It's really the level of detail that Lionel puts into is tremendous. And the level of the sound and technology that they have is really nice. They do a good job.
I only wish I had an I model in ON30, and I only wish I had the room for Lionel. I mean, the locomotives are expensive, but they're absolutely stunning. They're beautiful.
I don't see them as being that expensive. Everybody says that, but for what you're getting in today's world, they're not that expensive.
Yeah, in relative
You
terms,
know, for what you're getting, the level of detail, swinging bells, whistle smoke, um, all the technology in it, it's really not that expensive, in my opinion.
what do you know of the general health of Lionel these days? You know, for a time they were struggling, and are they,
I think
are
they're
they
doing
solid?
great. I
Yeah,
think
I think so
it's the
too.
125th anniversary this year. It's a big year for them. We had a great year last year. They had a nice product line. Um, it all depends on the line they put out, is how what type of year they're gonna have. So last year they had a great line. We did very well with it. We're having a good year this year. Our orders that we just put in were strong. They're a good company, you know.
Would you say that the G scale is equally strong? I mean, not on the same revenue side, but is the G scale market also strong?
Yeah,
Is it
there's a lot of
flat?
interest. There's a lot of interest in the G scale. People are going outdoors. The level of quality has gotten much better in the G scale, more detail. We're seeing a lot of the HO people coming up into G scale. They want to get involved because they're getting a little older. They can't see the HO or the N gauge, so they want to get involved in something a little bit bigger. The kids like the bigger stuff too. So we're seeing an uptick in G scale also.
Now, I shouldn't ask you, but I'm going to do it anyway. We talked briefly about celebrities and hobbies, and Neil Young actually visited your site. Could you share that story with our
Yeah,
listeners?
he's been here. He's been here 3 times. I guess that he learned his lesson after the first time he was here. He came. He pulled into the parking lot. He had his crazy horse bus that he had, and then he had a Lionel bus, which was all corrugated sided with a Vista Dome roof, which was used to so his child could see out the Vista Dome. And when he pulled in the parking lot, it was a normal day. And then he pulled in, and next thing you know, within a half hour, the place was stormed by thousands of people. We had the mall and police come clear the area. So the next time he came in a
Limousine.
limo or whatever. A limo driver brought him. But he was very nice when he came, very cordial. He came, his business manager came, and his son. He was very, very, very nice. He loved our layout. He loved our layout.
I was at a show once. I think it might have been Springfield that he happened to be at the same time. And I'm a big Neil Young fan, and I couldn't track him down. I couldn't find him. You know, there's thousands of people there. But well, let's move on to your product releases. I put together a PowerPoint on your behalf, and we've reviewed it together. So let's have a look at this. You can talk us through it. So once again, tell us, there's basically two companies.
Right.
Start there.
Basically, we have Charles Rowe Supply Company. That was how we started in 1972. My dad started the company. And in 1986, we formed another company called USA Trains. And that was specifically to manufacture G-scale trains. So we started manufacturing in the United States from 86 till present. And we also manufactured in China starting around 1995 or so. We made an NW2 as our first engine that we made. So that's basically how we started, and we're still going strong.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, this is an extruded aluminum tank car that we made. We did it in three sizes. We did it in a 29-foot beer can. This is the medium size of 42-foot. And then we do a 55-foot. And they're all extruded aluminum, die-cast trucks with metal sprung trucks, metal wheels, die-cast platforms. Everything's metal on the car. It probably weighs about 6 or 7 pounds. It's a beautiful car. And if you notice, the coupler has this is just some detail shots, and you can see that the coupler actually has the extension for the were prototypical tank cars. So you had that little extension piece on the coupler, so it couldn't come uncoupled, I guess. This is the safety clean version. We do about, next slide, please. We do about 8 or 10 road names in this, and then we do 8 or 10 road names in basically all of them, the 55-foot tank cars, exactly the same thing, but just longer. So we have something for everybody, all the sizes. We also do a 4-bay center flow hopper. This car is prototypical. So what we do with this car is we do also do the same die-cast trucks with the 36-inch wheels. And the detail is tremendous on this. We do the elongated hatches, we do the round hatches. The bottom actually slides open to expose the grain would come out through the bottom. Put metal wheels on it. It's just really a nice car. We do this in about 8 or 10 road names. We change them around periodically. So basically, a lot of the G-scale people are going a little bit more modern these days. So we came back with these. We had made these a few years ago. So we came back with more of a modern series this year. So we got the tank car, the hopper. We did the Gunderson cars last year. And next slide. And, okay, so this is the FEF Northern. We did this during COVID, actually, and it came out, I believe, right after COVID, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a Prestige series, which is a series of die-cast locomotives. We first did the J1E Hudson, then we did the GG1, the big boy, and this is our fourth locomotive, the FEF Northern.
Charles, what's the weight of that locomotive, just for curiosity?
I think it's about 35 pounds. And the tender is also die-cast, so it's a monster, and it's quite detailed. This was the first one where we modified the smoke unit to have whistle smoke, and we have smoke coming out the steam chest. So we did a little work on the smoke unit in this one. The smoke lasts a long time, and it has the operating Mars light, has a sound system. You can see in this detail shot, you see the front coupler actually turns, the cow catcher turns, expose the coupler in the front.
Charles, how long does it take from when you say you're going to do a Northern, you make that decision from that point to getting it ready to release in your retail market? What is the time frame roughly?
It varies. This one took us almost 3 years because we spent a lot of time on the smoke unit because we wanted to make sure it was right. So we probably spent extra 6 months just because of the smoke unit. It takes about 3 years, though, 2 or 3 years to get it.
And I imagine you have to order, whatever, 1,000 of them, right? There has to be some quantity.
Yeah, you have to order a quantity of them, especially to make it pay for itself, the amount of money you spend on the tooling.
Yeah.
But, we basically try and do it right. I mean, we spend a lot of time making sure all the details there. That's the most important thing. The modelers know all the details, so we got to make sure that we get it right.
Gorgeous locomotive.
Thank you. A lot of work. Next slide. Okay, this is the SD70 Mac. We did this probably about 5 years ago. We're going to reintroduce it to continue with the marketplace looking for more modern stuff. So this is our most modern locomotive that we make. diesel locomotive, and so that will be pulling the cars that we made in the past 2 or 3 years, which will be the Gunderson cars, the tank cars, and the hoppers, 4-bay hoppers. So it kind of all goes together. So that'll be available in about 8 or 10 different road names. We're going to do a patriotic one in this road name with the 250th year anniversary of the country. So we're coming to a big year for the country.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess we're going to see the layout now. Okay, so this is a still picture of the layout. This is the O gauge section where there's 3 tracks running. In this part of the layout, they're running through a town, the mountains in the back. There's a G scale that runs up in the mountain along that mountain range. And that was actually one of Neil Young's favorite trains to see because he thought the perception of that G scale running train was tremendous, which I didn't look at it like that, but he did. And this is another picture showing the same thing, basically the town. Next picture. Okay, this is showing the different levels. In the left-hand part of the screen, you can see the track for the G scale. There's 2 G scale trains that run there, and there's a pond underneath the tracks, or a lake or whatever. And then in the upper right, you see the bridge where the G scale would run up top. So the Lionel would run the middle, and the G scale runs in the bottom and the top. And you can see the level of detail with the brick structures or the cobblestone structures and all the trees, and it's a lot of work. And the rocks, we cut out of the styrofoam all that rock and sprayed it and whatever. So it's quite a lot of work involved to get it to the level that's at. And every time you come in, people always say, "Oh, I didn't even know that was there. I didn't see it last time." Because sometimes we'll have the hobos working with the campfires and stuff like that. And this is the water coming down on the culvert or whatever. And another shot of the different layers. The layout is layered, so it's not a boring layout. There's always something you see different. And that's the G scale that runs along the top through the mountains. That's a nice picture. You can see the level of detail, all the people, the lights. People just love to just look at it. It's pretty amazing. This again is in the middle with the O gauges. There's the bridge, that bridge in that picture where the G scale runs on top. That was made by hand by one of my employees who's very talented. And all the G scale track on that level is all bent by him and hand laid. So it's really quite something, that wooden structured bridge. Next. This is like a section underneath the bridge where they were doing some work. Looks like some workers were working on the railroad cars or whatever, and hobos around. So it's cool. There's a lot of detail when you walk around. You can see the detail in the wooden structure too, with the bolts and nuts and bolts and strapping or whatever. There's this Making Trains Fund. We're involved in this group. Actually, not a group. It's 2 people, Steve and Melinda Junks from Nashville. They actually got started in this. They were out at Caboose Hobbies at a G scale train show, and they were in line, and there was a young man. He was buying a bunch of stuff at Caboose Hobbies, and they just happened to talk to him. They said, "What are you going to do with that stuff?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to make a model train to put in the competition, but I'm competing against all adults, and I'm never going to win." So Steve and Melinda kind of thought about it, and said, why don't we have a kids competition? So they were the caretakers of the Nashville G-Skill show. So they came to me and we talked about it a little bit. And we said, well, why don't we make flat cars and the kids can decorate the flat cars and we'll give them an award. So I donated a locomotive to be the award, and I gave them 25 or 30 flat cars. So that's how it got started. So what they do is they go to train shows. There's 4 of them this year, 4 G scale shows.
Go to the next slide there, Phil.
What's that?
You should go to the slide and show the pictures of the children.
Okay, next slide.
You can skip this. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right. So here is this was out. Looks like it was at the Springfield show. So what we do is we donate the flat cars, and Steve and Melinda brings items to put on the flat cars that the kids can put on to decorate them. So it's strictly for, I believe it's 14 or 16 and under, strictly for kids. So they get to decorate these flat cars. And this year we have 4 shows that we're gonna do this exhibit at. And the kids actually love it. I mean, we did Springfield last year. The kids are asking to come back. You're going to have it? Absolutely. So the kids do these cars and they get an award, whoever wins or whatever. And the club is nice enough to put all these flat cars on a train and run it on the club layout for a period of time so the kids can actually see their flat cars running. So it's really quite an event. Steve and Melinda put a lot of time into it. They make all these wooden boxes and they collect all these donations for like animals and stuff like that. And they also do a bunch of buildings that the kids can decorate the buildings. They paint them, they do the different things. So it just basically gets the kids interested in the hobby. So now they have their own car, and then then it's okay. I want to train my own train. So that's how you get them started. But it's really quite a thing. And we got the kids asking again. You can see the picture, second photo from the left. Those are all the kids' decorated cars running on a layout. So, like I say, this year we're going to do 4 different shows in total, 250 contestants we expect. So that's quite a good turnout to get people interested. And then Steve and Melinda they spend a lot of time cutting wood, putting it all together, and the least I could do was give them the cars to go with it. They do all the work.
Very nice.
Yeah, very nice people too. And here's the 4 shows they're going to be at. Be the Rocky Mountain Show in April in Denver. And then they're going to be up where we are in West Springfield. And then they're going to be packing the car up in West Springfield and going to Ohio to do the second show. And then the last one for the year is the National Guard Railway Convention in Sacramento, California. So they have like I believe they have 100 kids registered for the Sacramento show. So it's going to be a big event.
Well, we still have a little bit of time. I'd like to, since we are a live Zoom show and we have live YouTubers as well, does anyone in any of our viewers here on the Zoom have any questions for Charles? Anything at all?
Charles, Phil Edholm. So actually, I'll probably see you in Sacramento because I'm out here in the Bay Area. But we have a fairly active G Scale club here. If they were interested in doing that at an event, would they contact you or the other folks? And how would they, and actually
Hey,
they'll be I'm pretty sure they'll be at the Garden Railway in
yeah,
Sacramento.
Steve and Melinda will be there, and they actually run they formed their own company to do that. We're only supportive and a supporting
Okay.
thing, but they're the ones who run the show and they're the ones who maintain it and all that. They have
Yeah.
if you go to their website, Making Trains Fun, you can contact them through their website, and they'd be glad
Okay.
to help you out in any way they can. They're very nice people.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Charles? Well, that was just absolutely phenomenal segment, Charles. We have to invite you back. That
Thank you. Anytime. I'd love to come back.
was very interesting, and the just the dynamics of what you do, and the realization that the youth and model railroading are critical to our future, and you're doing that with your layout at your retail center, and of course supporting the youth is just marvelous.
Yeah, we need more layouts. When we go to the shows, it's nice when you go to a show and they have layouts that, the kids can actually come in and see and take a little interest, and you have some imagination that what they can do. I always tell people too, they always come up to us at the shows and they'll say, well, I don't know how to get started. What do I do? They're overwhelmed. We're like, just buy a circular track and put a train on it, let it run. That's all you have to do to start it. You don't have to go big. You don't have to say, I'm going to do the whole backyard. You start small on the deck. You put a circle, an engine, a few cars, make sure there's interest. Then you can expand it, add another circle track, or make it a little bit bigger. And you'll see the whole family will take an interest in it because it's a family type hobby. The G scale is more family based.
Well, I thank you very much, and thank you for taking my calls the past few days to.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, and if you can stick around, next up we have a G scale segment with Steve Bittenger. He's going to feature his some of his locomotives and perhaps rolling stock. And thank you again. It was very nice to share your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Before we have our next segment with Steve, I'd like to plug our Observations newsletter.
Get more new tracks modeling by reading the monthly Observations newsletter. Each edition of Observations includes exciting articles about modeling shown on the show, other modeling topics and prototypical railroading information. Other articles focus on outstanding model railroaders and new products from a range of suppliers. Don't miss the photos of the popular new tracks my build. You can download Observations for free from the New Tracks Modeling website. Subscribe so you don't miss an issue.
One thing before we start with Steve, our Observations newsletter is about to get even more professional. I don't want to let too much out, but we are on the cusp of turning it into a magazine, and that'll notch up the professionalism even further. So anyway, more to come on that a little later. But next up we have, and we could highlight him. There we go. And Steve, welcome to New Tracks again, 3 weeks in a row. Thank you for letting me twist your arm. And I want to point out that's a new countertop he has there in front of him.
Yeah, yes. Once a year we get a nice fresh top. Well, good evening, everybody. And tonight, as a follow-up to that nice program we just had with USA Trains, I will say that at my personal railroad, I think I have more USA Trains locomotives than any other brand. So I've been a big investor. I should have bought stock in their company years ago, I guess. Been a good investment. But anyway, one thing I want to talk about here briefly tonight before I start showing you the models is that a lot of people ask me still, how do I decide which locomotives I'm going to tackle building? And most of that is the fact that I try to build those that will fit into my scheme, which is late 1960s diesels. And I also build those that are survivors. These are the real engines from many, many years ago that are still out there either working or they're in museums. But in any case, the real locomotives still exist. And in many cases, the manufacturers have not produced that particular locomotive. And I realize it is not possible for manufacturers to make every possible locomotive, particularly in things like large scale. your limitations would be there. The cost for tooling and so forth would just be prohibitive to try to make every possible thing out there. I just happened to be working on an article for one of the publishing companies regarding the same topic about how I approach this. So that'll be coming out probably next year. And I made a list of what we do. I have some other helpers that go with me when we want to produce what I think is the next locomotive that I want to build. And that all starts with research, number one. 2 weeks ago, I spent a full day at the Western Maryland Historical Society going through their records with the help of their staff for an upcoming project. And that's one of the best starting points. My next one is, once I get that information behind me, generally I call the railroad or the museum that owns that particular model and say, hey, I build scale models of locomotives, and you have the one at your place that I'd like to build. And by the way, how about letting us guys come there and crawl over your piece of equipment so we can measure it and photograph it and do all these things. You get a really kind of wide variety of responses depending on who you talk to at these railroads, but they've all been very agreeable. It's amazing. They're like, yes, you can come over, but you know, there's insurance requirements and so forth, and you fellas have to be careful. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I grew up on the railroad, I worked on the railroad, and I understand exactly what you're talking about. So we've never had any incidents of issues being on their property and doing what we want to do. Once we get photographs, all that technical data and so forth, I bring it back. One of the fellows who happens to work with me is a professional artist, worked for National Geographic for many years. We sat down and sketch out what we're going to do, get the particular pieces of every locomotive kind of in sections. We do front views, side views, etc. It is almost impossible to find photographs of the tops of locomotives. Very few times are locomotives ever filmed or photos taken of the very top of the chassis. So that's one of the things. We put ladders up, get up on top of those locomotives, get the measurements, and transfer all that onto our drawings. And once that's all done, now the next process is going to be, what do you build it from? Do you start from maybe some existing product that's out there that you can modify, or you just start from scratch? So since we just had a presentation with USA Trains, the first one I'm going to show you is a locomotive that I'm very familiar with. My mother worked for Western Maryland Railroad for 35 years. I worked with them as a car inspector many years ago, and I'm very familiar with this locomotive. I spent time riding in it up in the cab. It's had various owners over the years, and currently it's just been sold again, and it's now going to be going to the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad in Cumberland, Maryland. I'm going to slide this one forward and get Steve, the other Steve, to let you see this locomotive. This locomotive, in 1962, went to Hagerstown, Maryland, to the shops and got what was called a chopped nose. This was to improve crew visibility out the front of locomotives that had high noses. So the number 25 was the very first one done. It's unique in the sense, if I spin it around, it was the only one done that has dual windshields up here in the front. Actually, to build this model, we chopped up a GP38, and those are the windows from a GP38, and they just about absolutely mirror the ones that Western Maryland used. The chop job on the engine, I bought this used, and this was a Santa Fe, USA Trains Santa Fe unit in the war bonnet scheme. So it took it, we stripped it down, gutted it out on the inside, because this happens to be a battery powered unit and it runs on an air wire system. We're using USA Trains as power trucks underneath of here. The detail parts that we've changed on the front and on the rear, these parts have come from USA Trains as well. It has full sound inside. Back in '62, after these things were chopped, some of them got new paint jobs. This particular one was repainted later in CSX. It was then sold to a railroad, a short line in Georgia. They kept it in the CSX colors. After that, a gentleman by the name of George Altizer, who owned the Georges Creek Railway, purchased this, and it went to Georges Creek. Up into Georges Creek, I actually got a hold of Gerald, and we went up there and ran this locomotive and made a whole series of videos that we were going to produce. Unfortunately, we had an incident with that material. It got lost in the shuffle, but the actual locomotive itself, this number 25 and another one, the number 39, were just purchased by the Western Maryland Scenic. And that's great because I think they're going to have their shop crew go over this locomotive and put it right back in working condition. And I guess they plan to use it in scenic operations up there. I'm going to turn it on here just briefly. This is equipped with sound. Hopefully you can hear it.
Not really.
I won't go through all the various sounds it has. There's crew talk in the background. It just came on there briefly. But these are excellent models. So I don't have to speak over the top of this thing. One thing about G-Scan, you go outside, you got to turn the volume up because you lose volume. Since my railroad is indoors and out, we actually have what we call indoor sound and outdoor sound. When you come indoors, you got to turn the sound down. It gets a bit overriding. But I will say that this engine, which now has, I have to ask somebody at USA Trains when they first started producing these, but I'm going to say we have about 12 to 15 years of operation on the railroad with these, and the power trucks have held up great, have had no problems whatsoever. And this is an engine that we run regularly on the layout. A trip around my layout is a point to point. It takes about 8 minutes end to end with cars. So these things get lots of run time when we're actually running. We're having operating sessions out on the railroad. So that's one of the locomotives. I'm going to slip away from that one for a second and tell you that when I decided to start doing these models, I didn't start with a big engine like that. I started with this little fellow right here. This product is from Pico. They introduced this one a while back. This is a little 25 tonner that it's not done in 1/32nd scale, which they usually do. This is done in 1/24th. This one has been a pretty successful little engine because it's small. A lot of people can use it on a small layout. You don't have to have a large place to run them. About the only disadvantage for them, they're limited to about 2 to 3 cars, full-size freight cars that they can handle. This particular one is a track-powered model. They supplied me with about half a dozen of these for prototype paint jobs. Pico does not offer it in this Western Maryland scheme. I did this one and I did a CSX and a few others, and they never did really put these in production. So this is just a pre-production sample, I guess you would say. The only changes have been made from them. This is had on the front end, KD coupler installation here, and the same way on the rear. The product that you see here was next introduced as a battery unit. Track cleaning unit was offered, followed by just a straight battery unit. They are putting batteries by opening this front, putting their batteries in this long nose. This one has been changed up, and the next one I'm going to show you, this version still has the contacts on the bottom to be track powered. I don't have a track powered layout. This just sits on my shelf as a shelf model, but I thought that I could improve on this product by increasing its tractive effort. In other words, getting more pulling power, because the power blocks themselves are really strong. They're no problem there whatsoever. So I'll show, there's the Pico product. The next one we're going to show you is a new version that I produced. This is a 25 tonner. This is a 35 tonner. So what you have seen here is, I know you'll think I'm crazy, but I took the power block here out of this. I put it on my table saw and pushed it through the table saw and cut the front and rear end off the power block. I then took a scrap USA Trains engine I had sitting here that we chopped the running boards and so forth off the front and rear of it and mated it onto the front and back of the Pico engine. We also raised the body upward. It's much taller than the other one. This one has a side entry door for the crew. We now have this entry door here on the rear. Change the side windows so that it's a different setup all the way around. Top received a vent roof hatch, an extended smokestack. These railings are just handcrafted from brass, created those for those. And this nose now contains a lithium battery that is rechargeable with a port here on the bottom to recharge it. We have a separate switch. This is our sound switch on this side and battery charge. And it'll come on here in a second. And on this side, we have headlight front and rear power. So actually you can set with its lights on, just like that. You don't have to have it operating, can be in that position. This one has a different sound setup in it. This has a little MRC system that's inside of it. These MRC systems, pretty handy. Right here's one. And for a little switcher like this, these are great. If I turn that back on one more time. Oh, that's charge position. I must say I have to give Steve Sherill and Clem the idea to do these. Pretty handy dandy little setup. And if you notice that front and back motion, that's because it has a momentum shuttle gear built into that one. So that's a product that I thought could be put into production. I still think they can. The power blocks that were produced for this were actually made with the idea that they were going to do a 2-truck locomotive. They haven't gotten that far with their American products yet, but hopefully this will do. This little engine I showed you first, the 2 to 3 car operation, we had this out on a test on a gentleman that has a 4% grade in his railroad. This pulled 10 cars up a 4% grade. One of the big reasons is on the bottom, it has traction tires on every single axle. Secondly, we have filled this entire interior in here with lead weights. So the tractive effort is much higher than it was before. And the traction tires really give you excellent traction onto there. These little locomotives are made for a number of years. They were one of the most successful locomotives ever produced up through 1974. 550 some units of that particular locomotive were made. The last engine I'm going to show you, I will show you how it started, and I'll let you all, make you guess what it is. This is a diesel locomotive. This is the frame. This is how I start them when I build them. And what we're looking at here is just a piece of 3/16 flat steel. The blue line represents the actual outline of the frame. This is the same size as a GP7, GP9. These squares you see here and here, we cut those out with a torch. That's where the motor blocks rise up through. The round circle you see here is for the speaker. With this is the beginning point when I build a locomotive, if I'm building truly from scratch. After that point, I do one of two things. One, if I'm really desperate, I just start with styrene, PVC, and so forth, and start molding out the body. If I can find other locomotives that have some of the components I need, I chop them up and I use some of those components in the process. But I think a lot of people are amazed that this is what is the bottom frame for a lot of my equipment. This actually works out pretty good. This is going to give you 11 pounds of weight, this steel plate, about 11 to 12 pounds of weight, before we add anything on top of it. Finished locomotive is going to be 15 to 16 pounds in that category. So if you haven't figured out what engine I'm building here, right, I will show you what engine it is. There it is, finished. Right. This is the same steel this thing was built upon. The power trucks underneath are from USA Trains, they're power trucks. The rest of this I built from styrene, Bondo, and PVC, brass railings, bent and shaped for the locomotive. The BL2, just a little history, EMD brought this thing out prior to the production of the GP7 and eventually the GP9. This was called BL for branch line service. They envisioned these would be single engine going out on locals. When I worked on Western Maryland, we had these in Hagerstown. They were used as hump engines, humping cars up there. They also produced a slug unit, which I've also built. I don't have it up here tonight. So they used this along with a slug. And that was the work that these engines did for many, many years. Once again, this engine and the number 81, which is at the B&O Museum in Baltimore, 82 is working every day on the Durban and Greenbrier Railroad, and right here in West Virginia, down in Elkins. John Smith, who owns the railroad down there, he's had me up in the cab of this thing frequently. I also rode this thing many years ago when I was on the South Branch Valley before they gave up on it and sold it to him. So I've had a couple of times to be up in this locomotive. It's a very unusual cab inside. You really have a kind of spooky feeling, kind of like a Halloween-y look on the curvature of those windows up front. They are really different look, a little bit of an F unit look, but they really aren't. I know some people are going to tell me it's the ugliest engine ever made because they don't like them, but they kind of fall in love with them. This interior on this one, and I'll kick this one on for a second. This one has a Phoenix sound system in it, and we're using, once again, the air wire. This one has a really high amount of programming. Interior wise, the lighting on all of these is LED lighting. The old, I guess, incandescent type bulbs before that, if we get engines like that, I take those back out. We go the whole LED process through all these engines. This engine there, I tell you, with the slug behind it, I believe it would pull my pickup truck out of the driveway with no problem. It is really a powerful unit. You got four trucks, and every one of those pulling. It is quite impressive to do so. This engine, when we got it completed, I contacted the director to be in a museum, and they wanted to see it because I had built a previous piece of equipment that they have down there. So we took it to Baltimore, and they have an outdoor G-scale layout there. So this engine, even though they have the number 81 down there, it's under restoration right now. This engine actually ran the layout at the museum here last February, and they were all excited to see a model this size to have operating there. So that's it, 3 different products. And
what about the fans on top of this one?
The fans on this?
Mm-hmm.
What about it? Mr. Sherill asked me a question.
Tip it up so I can get the fans. Are those fans working, Steve?
Driven, as far as driven?
Yeah.
No. We don't have those driving. Yeah, it's not that.
Well, you made those fans scratch, didn't you?
No, these are USA Trains' fans here.
Okay.
These over here are 3D printed on this one. They're just a slightly different fan, but this is a 3D product. These are from USA Trains. That's their actual fan units up on top of there. I guess I'm still old school. I haven't learned how to do the 3D printing, but I do have 2 fellows that print us parts, especially small detail parts as we need them. So that comes in real handy. But for example, people ask me, and I tell them, this headlight you see in cover, I have a company that makes watch crystal faces. This is the face off of a watch, is what these are. and they work perfect into there. We 3D printed the little trim and ring that goes around that piece. But if you search out there long enough, you'll find the parts that you need.
Well, that's just amazing work, Steve, and very entertaining segment this evening. I am just amazed at the craftsmanship, the level of modeling is just excellent. It's just amazing what you do, and I had the privilege, of course, being in your workshop, seeing these models firsthand, and I have to say that BL unit's growing on me.
I told Steve Sherill while we were here, I said, this is my version of a my build.
It's a my science project. Just
Yeah.
excellent work, and thank you for the evening, and very interesting program. Very great segment. Thank you.
You're right. Okay, well, 3 weeks of me and G-Scale, you guys are probably worn out with me now for a while.
No, when your layout gets rocking and rolling this spring, I think we'll have to have a feature of the outdoor layout. That would be very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next up is Jamie Bothwell on news and views on S-Scale 2 rail. Before we feature Jamie, we have our sponsor for S-Scale 2 rail, the National Association of S-Gaugers.
Are you looking for something a little different in your model railroading? The National Association of S-Gaugers suggests you take a look at S-Scale. An S-Scale model is just 36% longer than an HO model, but it's 2.5 times the volume. The larger size translates to increased ease of maintenance, more durable details, and improved electrical and mechanical reliability. S-Scale modelers use accurately proportioned wheels and track systems with KD-style couplers. Exceptional S-Scale models and layouts are being built in both standard and narrow gauge. Locomotives and rolling stock are available from a number of manufacturers in both ready-to-run and kit form. Equipment is available both new and through an active secondary market. There are numerous manufacturers of track, buildings, vehicles, and details, both ready-to-run and in kit form, available for those who love to build. And many S modelers enjoy kit bashing and scratch building in the larger size S offers. To learn more, visit the website of the National Association of S-Gaugers. Here you will find the history of the scale, information about clubs in your area, see layouts and connect with current manufacturers and online groups, plus much more. In short, the website has everything you'll need to explore model railroading in S-Scale today. Come on board and visit soon.
Well, next up we have Jamie, and S-Scale really is an ideal scale. It's right in the middle of things. So I'm going to just say you win.
I hope you notice in the last slide in the video that there's a Monon BL2 down in the corner.
There you go.
Since it's BL2 night.
I'll get out my N scale one and hold it in my hand.
There you go. Okay, so let's see. What do I want to do here? Share my screen. And we'll look at this. Come on, click. There we go. And let's go to view and see a slideshow. All right, so Tom told you that I was going to continue my series on Pullman cars, but I thought you might want a little break from Pullman cars, so I decided to whip something else up. I'm going to show you how I laid some track. So let's see. There we go. Laying track on my new layout. You can probably imagine from many of my other segments that my layout will definitely feature some passenger car traffic. So I like to call it station in main, sort of like corner where the station would be, the Union Station or whatever station in the city that I'm modeling. So that's the working title of my layout is Station in Maine. The town is Ellsworth, Indiana. So anyway, in the past, I have been a little troubled by laying ties around corners, on curves, and so I didn't get a nice smooth flow of the ties, when you tape them in a jig in the straight bit and then try to bend them around the corner. So I decided to use my laser cutting talents to cut myself a tie jig that's on a radius. And so again, being a passenger car guy in S-scale, the 60-inch radius is sort of my large size radius. And then I figure the next track in will be 57. So I cut those two and figured that I could, if I needed something a little bigger, a little smaller, I could bend it from there. But that's my tie jig. Now, you'll notice that every fifth tie or every sixth tie, I guess it is, one, two, three, four, five. Yeah, every sixth tie, there's a space. And that's because I'm using printed circuit board ties in there and soldering the ties down to the rail. So that space in there is for put the printed circuit board tie in. And so what I did was I would lay the ties into the jig, put the tape on them. I used about, that much of a turn had about 3 pieces of tape on it. And then lay those down into the glue, spread some carpenter's glue on there, and then come back later and glue the printed circuit ties into the spaces. So you can see there, that's what we got going there. So there's the first corner of my layout, and it's ducking into staging. You can see the hole in the sky back there where the layout's going to go into staging. And then you can see too I've glued the printed circuit ties in there. There's the couple of printed circuit ties and point them out. Okay. There's another view of the ties. There's the stain that that I used to do the ties. What I did was these are, you can see, min-max water-based. I thinned them down with a little bit of alcohol. I've done it a couple of different ways, but my favorite is used to black. I forget, I just call it black. I think it's what do they call it? Ebony. I think it's ebony. And then the brown I think might be walnut, but I forget which colors exactly. So anyway, I think my favorite way to do it is I thin it down pretty thin with 90% alcohol, and then I put on the coat of the black, and then I come back later and put on a coat of the brown. Again, thinned out, and that seems to be the best combination. I tried some with do the black first and some would do the brown first, and it seems like doing the black first gives a better color, a color I like better. So there you can see the ties stained. Of course, the PC ties are not, they haven't been dealt with yet. I got to come back. I'm still trying to work out a way to paint those to sort of have them match the ties. Those ties in the foreground were done with the black first and the brown later. The ones further back were done with the brown first and the black later. You can't see those all that well. So, but there's the 2 parallel tracks all stained up, ready for rail. And there's a close-up of the kind of color I'm getting out of those. So I think it's pretty decent. I'd like something maybe a little more gray, but I don't know. We'll see what I can do. There's my soldering setup. I got this from, oh gosh, I forget the name of the place, but it's a really nice. It heats up super fast, and it's got a really fine tip on it. Again, maybe I need a bigger tip. I watched a guy soldering brass locomotives in Japan, and he didn't even have he just had an iron he held like by the stove, but it was really big, so it stayed hot, I guess was the trick. But I like it. It heats up super fast. So, and you can see it's got 3 preset temperatures, but I usually just use super hot. So, okay. So here we are laying the first rail in place. Actually was doing this evening. The soldering iron's probably still warm downstairs. So that's the first rail. I slapped it down there and soldered it to all the PC ties. And, just like you'd spike a rail every 6, like if you're hand laying track, you might spike the rail every 6 ties. I just solder the rail every 6 ties. And that tends to keep it, fairly straight, fairly well in place or whatever. It does enough of a job. Okay, there's a couple of track gauges in place. All right, so I'm using these 3-point gauges to lay it out. Those are for code 100. This is code 100 rail. So I'm just laying it out and soldering it down. And let's see if I go to the next one. And there it is. That's the current view. That's the way it looked when I walked upstairs at 7 o'clock this evening. That's what it looked like. So there you go. I just soldered that rail right down tonight. Everything was done other than the rail, but I did it. I did come home today from school and solder rail, so I could make a presentation about it. So maybe we'll get back to Pullman cars in the near future, but I also have another little passenger car surprise that I'm going to work on and try to present in not too much of a, one of these segments. I'm trying to get Andy Millette back on to show us a little more about his railroad, but I just thought maybe he needed a break from Pullman cars, so I showed you how I laid.
Jamie, Tom Farrell here. Tell
Hi.
us, did you rip those ties yourself? Where'd you get the ties? Just
No, the
curious.
ties are I bought some from Clover House and some from what's the other place that makes ties? I forget the name of it right off.
Northeastern or Mount Albert?
Mount Albert. Yeah, some of them are Mount Albert. So,
And
and
your rail, where do you get the rail?
the rail is micro engineering. I've just picked it up here and there, over the years. So it's been my railroads are a long time building, so been a while since I bought rail.
And
So
it looks like you have Homosote underneath all that. Is that what I'm looking at?
yeah, that's Homosote road bed, and then that's just on Luan plywood. So
And you're just gluing the Homosote down with a wood glue or how?
yep, just the carpenter's glue, same stuff that I glued the ties down with. So and then
Jamie, Jamie, do you
Jamie,
have a thickness difference between the board ties and the ties?
there does seem to be a slight difference between the board ties and the PC ties. These I bought these PC ties from no, what's his name? I can't remember. God,
Clover House,
don't get old. The
Clover House,
no, the turnout
or
guy up in Canada.
Fast Tracks.
Fast Tracks, right? I bought him from Fast Tracks, the PC ties, and the ties he was selling with his turnouts were thinner, and so those you definitely have to shim. But then he started selling these like regular track ties, and they're considerably thicker, so they're a little bit, they're much closer to the size of the ties. But I have found I had to shim them a little bit, maybe like I put a piece of paper. Literally, there's one piece of paper under each of those PC ties, just a little, a tie size piece of paper under there to sort of jack them up a little bit. I figured that as opposed to sanding them down.
Have you hand laid rail before? Is this your first effort or?
No, I actually this bench work that you're looking at was actually supporting another railroad, as recently as maybe last year. And so that I had soldered, I'd use all the same techniques. That was my little branch line railroad. So that one had code 83 rail or code 70 rail. I forget. I think code 70 rail mostly. And so I had basically done the same process. I just, changed my plan around a little bit. It's the goal was to build this layout and another layout, and I decided to focus more on this layout and put it where it was a little more easy to get at and whatnot. So I ripped out the other railroad was giving me some problems. If the plan here is to go to dead rail, and if I would have run the other railroad with dead rail, it probably would still be going, but I was having some pickup issues, and so I just thought, oh, the heck with it, I'm going to just tear it out and start again. So that's what I did. So yeah, I've done some. I also have a couple of 4-foot modules that are just straight track, so just 4 feet of track. It's just 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 two rails down 8 feet of track that's soldered in place. So I've done this for a while.
Are your turnouts going to be fast track?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So Jamie, this is Phil. So, I've used that brown earth from Rust-Oleum. It's the camouflage paint.
Right. I was thinking that very same thing.
And, I just spray the whole thing because I tend to use more in the ON30, tend to use more of the flex track.
Right.
What you can do after you spray that, and I can put some pictures on it if there's interest, you basically can use pan pastels to color them. I actually at one point was doing it with an airbrush. I'd built a mask. If you took your drawing and reversed it out and cut out just where those ties are, you could make a mask and then spray them with the earth tone.
Yeah.
And then you're probably going to paint the rails, so you just paint across whatever gets sprayed there. And then you can just touch
what might work is to put make a mask that would sort of sit into the middle of the track
Right.
and then you
Or
could
you
just
could just
spray the
tape them.
rail.
You could just get some masking tape out and just masking tape them off on either side.
Yeah, you could do that too. I was just thinking, then you just spray the rail and
Yeah.
mask off the ties that are already covered, and then just spray everything else. I was
Yeah.
actually thinking of something very much like that just the other day. I thought, yeah, I'm sure there's one of those camo paints out there that would be a good color for rail.
And it works really well. It works really well just to spray. I just spray everything and then come back with the pan pastels, and that gives you different coloration in the ties because you actually
Yeah, yeah.
control it with the pan pastel. You just put them on with a pop brush. So
I am
anyway, enough
hoping
said.
I am hoping that the oh, I was going to say something I forget. Anyway, I did find a product. Somebody recommended a product to me, like they're rail joiners, but they look like joint bars. So they've got like the simulated bolts in them. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's a rail joiner to put, to join the two pieces of rail, but it looks like it's got the bolts that would hold it together like on a real railroad. So I need to order a few of those, and try those out because they look pretty interesting. And then what I would like to do is I have some tie plates. Somebody was selling like cast resin tie plates, and ultimately what I'd like to do is go along and like probably just cut them in half, because when you look at this railroad, you're really not going to be able to see the back of the rail. So I'm going to try to just cut these tie plates in half and then glue them onto the front side of the rail so you can get a little more detail on the track. So that's kind of my plan, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, thank you, Jamie. It was a very interesting segment this evening. It is
Oh,
people that do. I've never attempted hand laying, but maybe someday I will.
okay.
Great job. Very
All right,
nice.
thank you. Thanks for
We'll see.
having me.
Oh, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Right.
And since we haven't had enough of S Gauge, we have coming up after our New Tracks Facebook video, we have Joel Weber coming up on S Scale High Rail. But first, our New Track Facebook video.
Does it seem like eternity waiting for the next Wednesday night and a New Tracks event? Now there is hope. The New Tracks Modeling Facebook page gets you into the New Tracks community 24/7. Post, respond, and converse with over 1,200 avid model railroaders on Facebook. Show your modeling, ask questions, and help others. Join now, it is free and easy. Use the link or QR code to open the Facebook page.
The next up, more S Scale for your entertainment. Joel Weber. How you doing, Joel?
I'm good. I'm good. And I actually got my camera working. I hadn't used that in the past. Joined a little bit of technology here.
I twisted Joel's arm a couple days ago to do this.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to try to keep things within our time parameter here. And the theme tonight, going to kind of talk a little bit about joining my history in S Gauge to how I've also worked through control systems. S Gauge trains start out as American Flyer. You put them on the track, you hook up 2 wires, and you're good to go. And American Flyer AC, everything, the reverse unit is inside the engine itself. So all you're doing is providing power and ground. And then it's the, forward, neutral, reverse, neutral. And everybody knows that dance. And if you're into high rail or American Flyer, that's how things ran. And that's how I started. And I'm probably a lot like a lot of people, you get into whatever gauge you do because that's what you fell into. My parents got a couple of trains from my aunt and uncle, bought a couple trains, put it under the Christmas tree. They didn't have any children. They gave the trains to us. And eventually they made their way to my house. And my neighbor in Atlanta was a Flyer guy. And he got me introduced to the swap meet market, and voila, off I went. So that's how I started. And this, for instance, this locomotive is a repainted American Flyer GP9 or GP7. And one of the things about Flyer, there's no concern about scale. You notice how long the trucks are, how big the couplers are, and that sort of thing. They're not really scale. They're meant for children to play with. Now, this one's been modified internally, and we'll talk about that in a second. You wouldn't know that by looking at it, besides the repaint job. As I continued playing with the trains and introduced to more things, of course, you run into American Models, who originally was doing scale kits. And everything they did was scale wheels, scale couplers, that sort of thing. But they developed high rail wheels so they could run on the Flyer track, which are much bigger, and the whole toy train aspect of it. The track is big, the flanges are big, so that kids could play with them and they could manage it and do that successfully. Another manufacturer was S. Helper. And S. Helper and American Models did a lot of work together. In fact, S. Helper derived from them helping out in S. Gauge. The control system that goes with this train is called Locomotives. And you had this controller here. And basically, instead of the forward neutral, reverse neutral, this gave you the ability to control some of the features of the train, running the strobe or the moonlight, running the headlight, stopping it, going back forward again, stopping it, going forward again, or in reverse. So you really kind of simulated more a real control of a train instead of the old-fashioned forward neutral, reverse neutral, etc. In parallel to high rail, the scale guys, like everybody else in scale, HO, N gauge, the direction was controlled by the power pack itself, forward and reverse. You're still in all of those systems controlling the track itself. Now, in scale, in DC power, people went to DCC. Well, the AC version of DCC, first with Lionel, was TMCC, and then Legacy, with a controller like this, gives us the ability to now control the train instead of the track. And earlier, Charles Rowe was on, and I bought a lot of Lionel stuff through Charles Rowe. They've gotten a lot of my money over the years. Lionel went big a few years in a row, developing a number of locomotives. As an example here, I've got an SD70. I've got a couple of these in different paint schemes. The nice hallmark of all these different control schemes that everybody's come up with is they all run in the old-fashioned Flyer forward neutral, reverse neutral. They can run in what we call conventional, but you can also use the newer schemes. And now I can control the train. I can run it at slower scale speeds. You can incorporate sound, whether it's the crew or the dispatch or whatever. So there's a lot more things you can do with it. Of course, the stuff gets a lot more expensive. And I really love them because they're more modern. There's the various aspects of it. The smoke units are better, et cetera, et cetera. So I've got a few of those going on. But again, always run with the ability to work with the old systems. Further, now I've recently bought a couple locomotives like I needed anymore. In fact, I told my wife I wasn't buying any more trains. I've got other hobbies that are calling for me too. Lionel came up with what we call Flyer Chief. Now, the nice thing about this is it's a very simple scheme. The reason I bought these is my grandchildren. It's a very simple, you've got a horn, you've got a bell, you've got the talk, you've got forward and reverse, and that's it. There's nothing fancy to it. You put the train on there, you throw power at it, you turn this thing on, and away they go. And I've bought 3 of these locomotives simply so my grandkids could run them. I had actually got involved in some other hobbies. I lived in the Chicago area for 24 years, and I'd built a rather extensive layout, never actually finished all the scenery, and I had actually started to wane in the hobby. I had told somebody once if my house had burned down that I would have taken the insurance check and walked away. But that didn't happen, and I moved down here near 2 of my grandchildren, the only 2 I had at the time, and that re-energized me in the hobby. and building a layout because they're amazed by it. They like playing with the accessories, which is one of the hallmarks of Lion or Flyer and Lionel, you know, the standard Lionel stuff is the operating accessories. And my grandkids love playing with those. They like pushing the buttons. They like to see the things moving, that sort of thing. But the Flyer Chief locomotive controls were really made it super easy for kids to play with the trains. So when I built my layout here, I first wired it up just so I could run the 4 tracks. Now I'm going back and rewiring because I've got to put in a couple of reverse loops so that my yard could be entered from 2 different directions, a couple of parallel switch control switches so I can move the power from the inner track to the outer track if I want to run the 1 train through it. The one thing I had done on my first big layout is I went common ground, and I'm not doing that here because while the common ground made it real easy to put the wiring together and a lot less wire, it had some compromises. Like with the old Locomatic, if I hit the horn, if I was running 2 or 3 Locomatics and I hit the horn, all of them blew. And obviously that wasn't acceptable. So playing around with that, the nice thing is with all these control systems, the Legacy's hooked up to all the tracks, the Locomatic can be hooked up. If the particular engine isn't using those, it is not affected by those signals. If I don't turn on the Legacy, the standard conventional takes over. As long as I have that control system turned on, I can use it. So I can use a mix and match on the same tracks, and I don't have to be exclusive on a given track or run multiple wire setups and that sort of thing. I'm going to have a few toggle switches, and that's about it. And I'm really looking forward to having that run. And maybe once I get that all together, I'll produce a video and show some of the various things in action and, you know, bring that back to the group. So, you know, as I said, I got into Flyer simply because that's what we had in the family. I've got into these various control systems because I like the more modern controlling the train and not the track. My layout in Chicago, I had an upper loop, fell into it by accident how I got there, but I had 2 80-foot loops on the upper level. And I used to have guys come over monthly and just play with trains. And there was one day I was running 2 Legacy trains on 1 track with 1 control, jumping back and forth between them. And there was 3 other guys, 2 with Flyer Chiefs and 1 with a Legacy controller, 3 trains running on 1 loop, and they were each controlling 1 train. So we had 5 trains running on the 2 loops, and we were having a ball. And I had 2 on the lower tracks just running, and it was amazing how quiet it suddenly got when we shut everything down. You didn't even realize how much sound is produced when you're running 7 trains all at the same time. So just some various things I've played with, had a lot of fun with, and a lot of variety. Unfortunately, some of the things are harder to get today. Lionel has kind of de-emphasized the American Flyer. They're not selling enough, and they're really kind of deciding it's not necessarily worth their effort. We're hoping they sell that to somebody else. In the meantime, American Models is making trains still. Now theirs are just straight conventional running. The S-Helper has been sold to MTH, who's then sold it to Scale Trains. And they did 1 set of locomotives. I'm sorry, MTH did 1 set of locomotives. So we're hoping they'll continue with that. There's a lot of stuff still available out there that gets moved around and that sort of thing. So lots still can be done, but would like to see more manufacturers come back into it, and who knows what they may do with their control systems.
It's absolutely fascinating that the control systems are backwards compatible over all these generations. That's a good thing, of course, but it's a really neat that you can do that. Yeah.
Just got to know a little bit of wiring is all.
Well, thank you very much. And really interesting. Maybe we can, currently you have a layout then?
I've got it's 12 by 20, 2 tracks up, 2 tracks down. Kind of paused on the scenery this winter. I had some things that had to be done. I got involved in some other things, but I'm kind of getting, now that my new basement, I had my basement windows replaced with glass block to prevent some leaking issues that I was having. So going to get charged back into it because I've got some scenery. This layout is going to get finished. Unlike my layout in Chicago, it never got completed. tracks were all running, because you have to put the tracks in first. You don't want to build your tracks and then put in scenery and then have to tear something out because something wasn't working. So my first step is make sure it all works, so that when I start laying down ballast and putting in trees and all this sort of thing, that I don't have to tear it out again.
Well, maybe we can feature your layout as it progresses, because I've been featuring my Rustic Buff and Old Gothic now, the remake of it, since I moved and downsized, and Jim Keller convinced me to show my layout step by step. Maybe we can do likewise something with yours in that regard.
Sure. One of the things I want to show, but I wasn't quite ready yet because I want to make it more invisible. I've got some creative techniques for hiding access points.
Well, that would be
that's something I would like to share, because I'm
great subject.
kind of a creative guy, and I came up with some solutions before, and I reapplied the same solutions here. So that's something I would like to show down the road.
Well, maybe we can have something next month. Who knows?
If not, then soon.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much for your segment this evening. Very
All
interesting.
right, you're welcome.
Picked up a fact that controllers are backwards compatible. That's really fascinating. Well, next up, we have Steve Sherill. What do you want to talk about? He's going to show track cleaning and wheel cleaning devices. But before we have Steve on, we have our My Build video, and then a little plug from Chris Course on the same.
Don't miss the monthly New Tracks Modeling My Build event. My Build is where the modelers of New Tracks show what they have been building. See amazing modeling with some My Builds featuring specific topics for modeling. If you would like to have your models included in the My Build, please email your modeling photos to Chris Course at railrunner130@hotmail.com. If you are a first-time My Build participant, please include a photo of yourself.
Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Tom.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, indeed. It's good to be here. All right, let's see. The upcoming My Build, it is on the, if we could show the slide there, please. It is on the 26th of March, and it is a free-for-all. We've got a couple participants already, but please don't hesitate to email your photos to me at railrunner130@hotmail.com. Please get those to me by January 23rd, and also please include a brief description. That way, if something happens and you're not there, I can speak a little bit intelligently about it. And we also have some upcoming shows. The April challenge will be automation and animation, whatever you can do to make it move, those sorts of things. I wouldn't even be opposed to like lighting effects that look like things are moving. Then after that, the May show will be a free-for-all, and we're gonna at that point we're gonna get into elections for show themes, which we'll go over in July, or I'm sorry, in June, with the water theme, and that's waterfronts, boats, bridges, those sorts of things. And then back to another free-for-all in July. If back to the show themes for next year, we're going to pick 6, just like we did for this year. Please email me your ideas for what you'd like to see as a show theme, and we'll go ahead and put it in a poll. That way everybody can have a chance to vote for, I don't know, I forget what we did last year. But we'll do basically the same thing again. And so that I can show the results, and everybody has input at that point for the upcoming My Builds. So anyway, that's it for now, and I'll turn it back over to you, Tom. Yeah, you're muted, Tom.
Thank you, Chris. Sorry. Thank you, Chris. And as I've pointed out before, if you have not participated in a New Tracks Live segment and you want to get involved with the show, the My Build is a perfect opportunity to showcase your work and get you hooked on presenting. We're always looking for material, and the My Build is one of the most popular segments we have on the show. So, well, next up,
Tom,
yeah. Mhm.
the date these pictures need to be in by is March 23rd, not February 23rd.
I'm sorry, what did you, it's
the slide showed February 23rd for having the pictures in. Is that?
Yeah, it's March 23rd. Yes.
March
23rd. Okay, just reminding people.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, little date. So Steve, welcome to the show again. Always entertaining and always knowledgeable fellow.
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to have to talk about track cleaning. I don't know of anybody that likes track cleaning. You know, it's something that we do. I thought I was getting away from track cleaning when I went battery powered 100%. But then I got caught up in ON18, which is all DC right now. And so I'm going to talk about cleaning track. So there are lots of different ways to clean the track. So Phil, if you'll show us some of them, some of the slides, please. We're also going to talk about cleaning the wheels on your engines. And so here we go. We're going to see some ways and some methods that you can clean your rails. Now, here is a track cleaning car. Now, this is a very expensive way to clean the rails. I believe, Tom, you said it was like $150 for that car?
$459.
$450. Oh my God.
Well, I think I'm going to order 3 of them. No, I'm kidding.
And that looks like it's on Lionel, isn't it? It looks like it's on Lionel truck.
Yeah.
So my goodness, I guess that has to be wider because of the third rail, you know.
Yeah, it also has a double pad. The HO only has a single pad.
Yeah.
This has a cleaning liquid pad that's in the front, and then one underneath that's actually can kind of pick up more material. They work pretty well, but they are really expensive. We bought them back when they were like 300. So I don't know what's going on with them.
Wow.
You can go to the next slide. This is more of a, you'll see the point. Yeah.
That's the undecorated version, right?
Yeah, the decorated be even more. This one has buffing wheels.
This looks like this might be homemade.
Yeah.
Or you could make it this version. A couple of motors are probably the pads turned circular.
Yeah.
And clean off the rail. They have one pad for each rail.
Yeah, and then there was a box car that sat on top, or a shell sat on top of this.
So these are all methods that you can you can use. You probably pull this around your layout, and I actually, it's got couplers on it, so you probably do pull it behind the locomotive or push it, one or the other. It probably does a pretty decent job too. How about the next one, Bill?
Plus your tracks feel massaged, so they feel good.
Yeah. Here's one that is much more easier to use, I think, with the handle that moves, and you push that along the tracks. And I'm unfamiliar with this, other than I know it probably has a cleaning pad on it that you push. And I think that's about $10 or $11, I believe.
32.
Okay, I saw that on eBay today when I was looking up some of these things. So, you know, they're on sale sometimes.
Yeah.
and you push it along the track. I think you had to be careful that your ballast jobs have to be pretty good ballast job, not to rub on the ballast on the sides of the rail there. What else do you have?
Next slide. Yeah.
Now, now we're down to the West Virginia method to clean the track. The pad on the left is called a Cratex. It's got a very fine material. It's soft, and it comes in different thicknesses and softnesses. Some of them are very, very soft, fine, and regular. And they're about $10 or $11. What I did here, this particular one is about 2 or 3 inches. I believe they're about 5 inches full. Now that one I've had for over 25 years, so they do last a while. And the other thing, you might as well be cleaning your track with a brick. That happens to be the Bright Boy. And you want to avoid putting scratches in the tops of those rails because all that does is give dirt and dust a place to hide. So you want to use something that's a little softer, that just kind of rubs them on the tops of the rails and doesn't scratch them. So this is, again, last week we talked about my test track. So here I'm getting ready to use the test track to solve another problem. And if you go to the next one. So here we are on the test track. What I've done is I have taken the isopropyl pad, opened it up, put it over top of the rails, and stretched it out to secure it with 2 of the push pins. So in the next scene, you'll see how the power block is pushed up against the bumper there, and the wheel is on the pad, on the alcohol pad. Now the alcohol is going to rub off the dirt, and so what I do is I hold it because so it doesn't move and the wheels spin. Now you want to don't force down on it. You just want to let it spin freely. This is a 2-axle, so it's got 4-wheel pickup, and so it will turn. Now you can see the dirt that I got off of that with that method. Now with the next slide, you can see how you can use that pad by stretching it across, somewhat similar to a band of bullets in a machine gun. You're just moving it over. So you can use that quite a bit. Now you can turn it over and use it the other side also. And it does very effective. It's very effective. Now I have eyedropper alcohol on that to refresh the alcohol. And those pads, it kind of evaporates pretty quick. But that is a method that can be used to clean your wheels. If you don't clean your wheels, you might as well forget about cleaning your track, because it's a twofer. You got to clean both of them to get the best operation on your railroad that you can get. Is anybody now? I know that there's some people that use the pad, the masonite pad with the rough side down, and they attach it under a boxcar. I haven't done that, and I actually started to do that for this demonstration. But the alcohol pad has always worked for me, and you can also, instead of an alcohol pad, you can use an old T-shirt, cut it in a 1-inch strip, and you can use that for a long time in the clean areas. The T-shirt actually has a little bit of abrasive in the fabric, so it will clean the wheels very, very nicely. Has anybody else got some kind of a method that they use?
I guess the masonite burnishes the the rail, but I'm not sure it actually cleans it. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually does. It picks it up. We've run those on large club layout. We got the the brass CMX cleaner car, and it works. It works well on a big layout. Especially you just put it on and you can run it for a while. So, one thing on the ON30 locomotives that I've actually done is you can actually uncouple the DCC ones have the plugs so you can unplug. One of those plugs is actually the motor wires.
Mm-hmm.
And I got those connector and made that up. So you can go underneath and unplug that and plug in a plug, run it directly with DC voltage.
Mm-hmm.
And you're running now directly to the motor. You don't have to worry about going through the track. And then you can just put the whole locomotive right on a pad on the trails and just clean the wheels. Because it's, I think getting the locomotive wheels, that's a great way to do it. But it's kind of a challenge with HO, smaller scales.
Yeah.
So,
does anybody else out there have a method for cleaning their track?
What do you N scalers do?
Yeah.
We'd like to know what you do, because whatever you do, it's got to work effectively there. If we use that, it's going to be super good as you get bigger.
Actually, in the demonstration there, that was N scale. That was ON18.
Okay.
So, but that was for the wheels on the equipment. Now I have to clean the track on my micro, which of course is only about 6 feet of track. And I will be, I guess, taking a Kratex and doing it. But I've also found that since a micro lathe is so small, you can almost take your finger and do it, So I'm going to have to experiment to see how that's done.
One little thing that I overlooked is I clean my track regularly with just basically an abrasive eraser, more or less. It's specifically made to clean track, but I haven't been cleaning the wheels of the locomotive, and I just had the epiphany, why am I not doing that? So I'm going to take your method with the wipes and just go through the locomotives and the rolling stock and clean that, because really you're just putting the dirt back down if you're not cleaning the wheels. Yeah.
You definitely don't want to use anything too abrasive, because
Yeah.
if you put scratches in the tops of those rails, the dirt is just going to go right there.
Guys, back about 6 years ago, I got one of those centerline cars for my HO layout that has the roller in the middle, and you just wrap a handy wipe around it. And I'll put mineral spirits on the handy wipe and run it in front of my locomotive. And I do it about once every 2 to 3 months, and it cleans the track pretty well. It does a little cleaning on the locomotive wheels, probably not as much as cleaning the wheels by themselves would, but by running it in front of the locomotive, it picks up a fair bit.
Well, I use just alcohol, but a lot of people are using different materials, liquid materials, to put on their cleaning rags or whatever they're using. And I don't know what works best for people. Goo Gone was one that was working for a while. I don't know,
I used
Goo Gone leaves the residue.
Goo Gone leaves residue?
Goo Gone leaves the residue. I used to use that and moved away from that.
You did.
Plus, it's toxic. It's pretty. I have a can of it within reach here. It's pretty foul smelling stuff.
Yeah, it tricked us at first because it would actually do a good job of cleaning, but it left a residue, and
you want to take glue
a while
off
to get all that off.
I use acetone and a rag.
Joe Fugate went through a whole bunch of the chemicals and the ionization properties, and alcohol as a cleaner has some issues, and the mineral spirits was supposedly better. And then that, using the Noox, which is a grease, after you've cleaned your rails, is supposed to actually give you a much longer operation without having to clean them. So maybe an interesting to go look into that.
So what does your club use, Phil?
We do. We basically have done. We've done two things. We've done the alcohol cleaning with the CMX car. That's kind of our primary way. And then, locomotive wheels, quite frankly, the beauty of O scale is it's a whole different animal. So
Yeah.
we literally have a little area right by where we have our stand. And it's been done long enough that the scenery has now become so soaked that it can become kind of almost glass. You basically just put a paper towel down and hit it with some alcohol. We got a squeeze bottle, and then you just run the locomotives and hold on the back and just power them up, and they just go up on it. We get those blue heavy duty paper towels, the ones you use in a shop,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they just run up, and you would be amazed how much black you get off of them. Because when they run, the part of the problem though is, again, when we did the NOx, it actually seemed to help because it cuts down on the microarcing, which generates the carbon. That's why you clean the tracks and you come back. Because we run the trains for 18 to 20 days a year at the fair for 10 hours, 11 hours a day. So, it's a lot of train running, and it just very quickly you build up that carbon. So, but the problem with the NOx was you put it on and you have to be very careful. And we kind of had a problem with members coming in and deciding to run the alcohol cleaning car, which of course takes the NOx off. So then you're back to square one. So anyway.
How about the old clicker oil? They used to use clicker oil at one time.
Yep. I think it's the same thing from a property perspective, is it's got some things that reduce but I don't know. I think the NOx seems best. You just have to be very, very careful putting it on, and you have to clean the tracks first. And I think the mineral spirits works well. That's, the CMX car at the mineral spirits, or you can use, oh, come on, starts with an A, the
acetone,
but you can't use acetone if you have plastic. If you've got a hand laid rail, you can use acetone, but if you've got flex track, you can't.
I would be weary of the acetone and even the mineral spirits. You're going to watch exposure to these things. I think the alcohol is probably the least harmless.
Yeah, the alcohol doesn't seem bad.
Do you find that the keep alives give you a longer time without having to clean the track?
I only have a couple of them myself.
Yeah, the ON30, I put them on everything just because we're not, you're running on different people's tracks, and a lot of times the tracks do get cleaned, but sometimes they're not. People don't, it's a group activity. At the club, we have a bunch of engines that don't have them because they have, inexpensive decoders. In O scale, there's a 408 decoder from NCE that's fairly reasonable. It's just a basic. I think it's got 7 or 8 out. It's got like 6 outputs, but then it's basic motor control, no sound. And the problem is those are one of those where you got to go on the board and find the right points to put a keep alive on them. They don't come with a keep alive plug. So
by the way, I did see on eBay an in-scale powered unit that was a track cleaner, and it was like $35.
Yeah.
So
there are some HO units, and there's actually one now. There's one from Bachmann in ON30, which is a car with a pad underneath it, I believe.
Wow.
So, I think there's some options like that to run in a train that, and that's why the Masonite pads actually work pretty well. You run them and you see they get gunk on them, and then you just take a sandpaper and clean them off and run them some more.
Back in business. Yeah.
And they're just basically, those were just a pad. Now this is an O, so they're big, but there's a pad sanded up on either end with 2 nails in it and a box car with 2 holes in it that the nails go up into, and they just ride on the tracks and just ride around.
Yeah, I've got one of those on my layout also. It's in a box car.
Is it
And
sprung?
every time I run it, it comes off dirty and then I'll sand it a little bit.
Yep.
But it's picking up dirt, so I guess it's working. It's just, I never really figured out how. They don't put any type of solution on it or anything.
It just rubs the dirt off.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
Steve, in N-Scale, about 5 or 10 years ago, there was a company called Aztec.
Yeah.
And they were making track cleaner cars. And it was like a five function thing where it had one of them was a Craytex roller in it, or you could put a brass roller in it with a little handy wipe wrapped around the roller and put a cleaning solution on it. And it had a magnet on it and a brush that would brush the dirt up and everything. But that was made for N-Scale. And you keep talking about your HON 18. That's not HON 18. That's oversized N-Scale.
N-Scale on steroids.
No, oversized N-Scale.
All right, guys. So thank you, Steve. Very interesting. And thank everyone else for their contributions. I think we'll squeeze in my presentation, but it'll be quick, and then we'll close the show and do the caboose. But before we do my presentation, I'd like to run the NewTrax donation.
Do you enjoy NewTrax modeling? You can help support NewTrax in many ways, but donating to support the show and other activities is really appreciated. This helps pay for the expenses of producing the show, including Zoom, website, and emailing costs. You can support NewTrax financially in 3 ways. First, you can make direct contributions through Patreon. With Patreon, you can make a single or monthly contribution to NewTrax. You can also contribute through YouTube by using super stickers and super chats to donate. Finally, when you watch a YouTube replay, letting the ads run will increase the payout to NewTrax. Thank you for supporting NewTrax modeling.
As I say every week, we do not have large expenses, but we do have expenses. So if you enjoy the show, it's not going to hurt anybody out there to put in a $5 or $10 or $20 payment to help support the show. So next, I'm going to do a quick presentation, and let me get this going here. Everybody see that? So
Not
I'm going
yet.
to, oh, hold on a minute. Let's just try that again then here. Okay. How about that? I assume everybody can see that.
All good.
Terrific. So I purchased a Bar Mills scale model works water tower. This is a resin kit. I don't normally purchase kits. I purchase kits that would be very difficult for me to scratch build, and this one would fit that bill. They call it the water tower at Cranberry Yard. It's a very nice little kit. It's O scale, of course. It's sized for ON30. Probably could get away with it for ON3, but it's not large enough for O gauge. But it's perfect for me because I'm in ON30. It was $90, which isn't crazy. Most of my scratch builds cost about $20 in materials, but once in a while, why not? So The kit comes with basically 3 principal resin castings, this very large, relatively cube, which is the base, and then the water tower itself, and then the roof, the spout, and the various supporting mechanisms to hold the spout are 3D printed. And then it gives you some wood and some other things, but it's principally these 3 pieces. So the first thing I do is I wash them with a Dawn dishwashing soap to get rid of any potential mold release. Oh, jeez. So then with this surface primer from Tamaya, I sprayed the water tower itself, the roof, and all 4 sides of this the base, the rock base. This gives the paint something to bite to. I started with itself. I took a very inexpensive acrylic paint, you know, the little, and I started with my base color. And then I went back with this time I used mineral spirits and an oil-based paint. I took burnt umber and then mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits. I wanted to highlight the grain on this water tower. And then I began showing on most of these water towers, there's like a mold. So I took black acrylic paint and white acrylic paint, and I mixed them, and I dabbed it on the base of this water tower. Then I went with a rust-colored acrylic paint and painted these bands. And you'll see as I go back, I'll add additional colors and weathering to this whole thing. Then for the base itself, I just painted it gray, basically, acrylic paint again, and I used pan pastels to get some variation in the color. So I just took, it already had gray on it, but I took a gray acrylic paint, and then with pan pastels, I put a little brown on the bottom to show as if mud was bouncing up here. This is a military German gray green that I use frequently, and I painted this with the same color I painted the band with. So basically, this is just gray primer, gray paint, and then pan pastels, a dark black up top, a medium gray in the middle, a lighter gray on the bottom, and then a little brown to show as if mud would splash up. They provide these, which are in essence 4x4s, roughly, in these sticks, as you saw in the beginning. I stained them with a 100-line stain. I super glued a perimeter of this material, and then I cut with my chopper these in length here, and then just super glued them on. I used one of these as a spacer so that I would, oops, this mouse is sensitive. I took a scrap piece of wood that was slightly wider than these, we'll call them 4x4s, and I just super glued them on one at a time. Then I glued the water tower itself with super glue onto this base, and then super glued the roof onto the water tower. Boy. And that's about as far as I got. I ran out of time, but you'll see this finished next week. It's a nice little kit, and like I say, I buy kits when I feel I can't scratch build it or would to cast a plaster base like that and hand carve it. I have hand carved, but I really didn't feel up to the task this time. So that basically concludes our show, with the exception of the closing with Father Ron, who is not available live this evening, but we do have a video of his closing. It's a tradition of the show. Yeah.
Almighty God, just as our models imitate the beauty of your creation, may we imitate your kindness and generosity to us in our relationship with others. Bless us now and always. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. Last week we had Father Ron on 3 times modeling. He's a very good modeler. And now the caboose, which is called the Pizza Making Model Railroad. Quite interesting.
Watch what happens with the balls. There's the dominoes.
Sherill, I think you need one of those. That's just my opinion. Well, that concludes our show, and I think it was one of the best shows ever. Just really, really entertaining, at least for me. I hope you enjoyed it as well, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.